Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. And if you've never been here before, what we do is long-form political commentary in a free format. We hope you enjoy it, and every Sunday every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you, both on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, listening to your comments and your voices because you need to be heard. So today, one of the things I wanted to speak about at this moment, and this will be a short video, it's just, you ever see a news story, and you just look at it and you go, that just doesn't make sense. I don't get it. It's something's wrong. It's off. And every so often in the research that we do, we run into all kinds of stories that sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And it's a one-off, but yet it's still very confusing. And we have two items right now that I want to get into very briefly. It just doesn't make any sense. And I have to say, where is our country going? What is going on? Because this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let me explain. So back on the 17th of November, 2 days ago, in Virginia, there's a police chief who was fired because she charged criminals with a crime. So let's go over that. And I want to give credit to my associate, Jazz Shaw, who's over at Hot Air. He does a great job. He's a personal friend. I always enjoy reading his work. But it really struck me on this because this goes back to June 10th, where in Virginia, Portsmouth, Virginia, there were a group of protesters, which are the Antifa far-left radicals, that decided to destroy a Confederate monument, which is something that we don't agree with. That's not the way, destroying a monument, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't improve anything, quite honestly. It's not changing the past, and it's not improving the future. But what happened is they went out and they destroyed this statue, as we saw throughout the entire summer and over the last couple of years. Now, Police Chief Angela Green did an investigation based on that in a video because someone was hurt in them pulling down and destroying that statue. And after a bit of work, she found out that State Senator Louise Lucas was one of the individuals who was involved in the BLM Antifa event in committing this crime of destruction of property, destroying the monument, and injuring an individual. Now, you would think most of the time that would be a pretty big story. It would be interesting that a state senator committed a crime and was therefore going to be charged and would suffer the consequences of that. That's what you would expect. That's what's supposed to happen in our justice system. That's what's supposed to happen in a nation of laws. And whether or not you agree with her reason for that doesn't really matter. She did, in fact, commit a crime, and therefore she should be punished for that crime. And if you want to say, well, she's protesting an unjust law, well, I would point to the example of Mahatma Gandhi or even Martin Luther King, individuals who, when they broke the law to protest a law they felt was unjust, they didn't then get absolved of the crime they committed. They were still punished for the crime. They still served time in jail. These were things that they still had to suffer for. They weren't absolved. But yet it seems the newest thing is that instead of the state senator, Louise Lucas, being punished for committing a crime, the police chief was fired. That makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense. And as Jazz Shaw mentioned in his review, apparently the laws only apply when some people agree with them, and charges are filed against the accused unless they are from a politically approved demographic or group. Really? That's what we've come to in our nation. laws only apply to certain people, sometimes, in some cases, then we don't have laws. I've had this conversation, I don't know, half a dozen times in the last 2 weeks. Laws are laws because they apply to everyone all the time. When we have a bad law, we get rid of that law or we change that law, but we don't ignore the law. That's not the way it's supposed to work. And if you do commit a crime, you're going to get punished until that law is changed. It's pretty straightforward. But when we have people picking and choosing which laws we're going to follow, and when we're punishing people for actually following the law and doing their job, you're never going to see this improve. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I cannot see the logic behind this. A state senator committed a crime, and not only was this news story relatively downplayed, but then the police chief was punished for this. Now, if someone wants to say, well, this is about race, you don't understand. This is about racism. The statue didn't commit a crime. And more importantly, the police chief is black. She wasn't doing this because of racial bias. Someone was hurt in this event. It's a crime. Why is it that some people are absolved of committing crimes? I mean, look at what we see in the Chaz, in Seattle, in Portland, Austin, Atlanta, where people are committing arson, rape, acts of terrorism, essentially, in some places. And it's okay. We just let them walk away. And now it's not even crazy enough that the district attorney is not following through, but the police chief is being fired for it. What kind of message are we sending to our police officers, to our students, to the kids who are watching this? What are we trying to say? I mean, and this is probably one of the reasons why just yesterday there was a news, and yes, this comes from Breitbart News, but there was an article of something even more insane, something even more ludicrous. There at the University of Wisconsin, students have just declared that a rock is racist. A rock is racist. What are you talking about? This is dumb. A rock, the existence of a rock has been considered racist. Now, to be very clear, at the University of Madison, Wisconsin-Madison, the fact is that the rock, which is known as the Chamberlain Rock, which was named in honor of Thomas Crowder Chamberlain, a geologist and former university president, was at one time, once in 1925, was referred to in a term that today, over 75 years later, is considered a racist term. It wasn't in 1925. It is in 2020. And because it was referred to one time in the last almost 100 years by a racially negative term, well, that rock has to be removed. It is a symbol of racism. And again, according to the state journal, the Wisconsin State Journal, 1925 was the only known instance of this offensive term being used. So we've come to a point in our history that one time, if something is called racist or is used in a racist, what we now consider to be a racist manner, in the last 100 years, well, we have to destroy it. We have to get rid of it. We have to hide it. We have to be offended by it. That's insane. That's insane. And how do you get there to where a rock is a symbol of racism? When we get to a point where we're firing police officers for doing their job. They're connected. I don't understand what's going on in this nation. It seriously doesn't make sense to me that we would fire people for doing their job and we would be offended and need to remove and hide rocks. It's insane. If you are offended by a rock, you have a problem. It's not the problem of the rock. It's not the problem of the university. It's the problem of the people. You're looking for a problem, and you're trying to find a way to make that problem public. You're looking for an excuse to blame racism on everything. It's dumb. And it's fueled by the idea that people get away with doing stupid things. Where is it? Where they get away with doing stupid things like just going out there and firing people for doing their job. This doesn't make sense, folks. It doesn't make sense at all. I don't get it. But if you do get it, if it does make sense to you, why we should fire someone for doing their job of arresting and charging criminals for a crime that has been investigated and they need to go to court for this. Of course, there's always the presumption of innocence, but if you've been investigated and you've been charged and if you can explain to me why the police chief should be fired for that, if you can explain to me why a rock is racist and how that offends someone to the point that they can't go to school and it needs to be removed, if you can explain that, please do leave a comment. I really want to understand that because I don't. I just don't. But I wanted to share that with you because not big stories, not big news, but it's important. And I'm really confused. But I look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon. Thank you.